Mike Martz played tight end in college at 3 different universities. Eventually, he graduated summa cum laude from Washington University here in St. Louis. There's a lot of tags on his luggage. He was an assistant coach at 7 colleges over a period of 17 years. His big break came in 1992 when he was hired as a quarterback coach for the Los Angeles Rams. When the Rams moved to St. Louis, Mike was the wide receivers coach. He tutored the likes of Isaac Bruce, who went from a season of 21 receptions to 119 catches and almost 1,800 yards the next season. Mike moved to Washington as the offensive coordinator in 1997, but returned to the Rams as the offensive coordinator in 1999 under Dick Vermeil. And the most explosive offensive team in the history of the National Football League was born. Okay, say it with me now. They called the Rams offense the greatest show on turf. There you go. They thrilled us week after week with Mike's super explosive offense. The Rams won Super Bowl 34, and Kurt Warner credits Mike as the reason he developed into an MVP, Super Bowl champion, and a Hall of Famer. Quarterback Mark Bulger said that Mike was by far the smartest football mind he had ever been around. When Dick Vermeil retired, Mike took over the Rams and led them to a 14-2 season and another Super Bowl. The Rams energized the city, filled the dome game after game. We thought it would never end, but it did, didn't it? It's now in Los Angeles. What Mike Martz loves to do, though, is teach. Watch this brief video when he coached the college all-star team.
I love teaching.
Hey, hang on a second. Every stand, take a deep breath.
I was raised to be a teacher. That's what coaching is.
We don't want you out here now. If you're going around that corner, you'll be nice and snug.
If you can help a young man maybe just make a little progress in his life, that's the thrill for me. I know it may sound corny, but that's why I coach, period.
God, I love your enthusiasm.
If you can help somebody or a team or a group of guys become something that maybe they didn't think they could do, well, there's not enough money that can buy that. We told them the very first night, my experiences, no matter how much money they're going to get paid or all this hoopla, down deep inside, they're really not sure that they're good enough. A lot of times that negative image or that thought, not being sure, can really tighten them up and block them from a good performance. What we try to do is reassure them that the fact that you're here means that you probably have enough ability to have the potential anyway to make it. So get that out of your mind. So eventually in football, you will become what you accept. And I firmly believe that. Don't ever accept anybody's definition of who you are as a man or as a player or as a coach. Trying to take away that box that's put around so many kids that you're not big enough, you're not fast enough. And that's freeing. That's really when, as a coach, you go, oh man, this is fun. What an amazing feeling.
The man who hired Mike to put together that incredible offense is now growing grapes in California. Watch the monitors for Dick Vermeil.
Hello, St. Louis. Mike Martz. Congratulations. As you can see, I'm here in the Napa Valley and can't be with you tonight, but I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate you, Mike. Nobody deserves to be in the St. Louis Hall of Fame more than you. Not Dick Vermeil, not Kurt Warner, nobody, because you were the catalyst to put what we had built in 2 years. You put it all together. I thank you. I appreciate very much what you've done, and I'm so excited that St. Louis is honoring you by putting you in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
From Super Bowls to grapes. The Rams have been ripped from our city, but Stan Kroenke cannot take away the memories of Mike Martz and the greatest show on turf. Welcome home, Mike Martz.
How are you, Michael?
I'm doing great.
You know, I think the world of this man. And when you cover a beat, when you cover a team, and you know how many hours the coaches spent, I spent more time with Mike Martz than my wife for all the time Mike was here. And I saw a side of him that many of you didn't see. The Mike Martz I saw, among his qualities, thoughtful, sincere, funny, humble. Yes, I use the word humble and Mike Martz in the same sentence. But he took more time to get to know the media than any coach, even, God bless him, Dick Vermeil. He'd frequently come down and visit us in the media room. We'd learn stuff, but just to see how we were doing. And just one quick example, Bernie Miklasz, was it his mother or father that died, Mike?
His father.
And coaches, you wouldn't believe the hours NFL coaches spent. Mike, late in his time there, had a shower built in his office because he didn't always have enough time to go home. He finds the time. Bernie's just distraught. His father dies. Mike Martz goes to the funeral in Baltimore, and Mike didn't make a big grand entrance. Bernie told me about this. He didn't even know Mike was there till the end, and he just saw Mike standing in the back to pay his respects. Now, Bernie wrote some very complimentary things about Mike over the years, and he probably wrote
Some bad stuff too, I got to tell you.
well, some stuff where maybe Mike wanted to, put his arms around him, but around his neck, rather. But there was Mike in the middle of a football season at Bernie Miklasz' father's funeral. You don't forget stuff like that. You do not forget stuff like that. So that's the kind of person he is. Now, Mike Martz, as a coach, if you're a race car driver, that foot would be on the gas all the time. If he was a bowler, I think he would be Pete Weber.
Oh, I like Pete. I like Pete.
He's your kind of guy, isn't he, Mike? When they played that Led Zeppelin song, Kashmir, at the Dome, when Mike Martz's Rams and Dick Vermeil's Rams, when they'd come out on the field, I swear, you could see the defensive players' knees buckling when they had to face what he would put out there. No one in the history of the game has called plays like Mike Martz. A lot of coaches play the NFL game. You've seen the game. Like they're afraid, almost afraid to win. It's like they're playing not to lose. This guy used every space on the field. He made his players feel better than they were. Great, great motivator. And just tremendous play calling. Gil Brandt, you've all heard of Gil Brandt. He called the 99 Rams the best offense in NFL history. Mike, the first thing I got to ask you, where did all those plays come from?
We had such a great collection of players that not only were they so talented, but they're very intelligent and very unselfish. So it was very easy for us to experiment, if you will, during practice and preseason and whatnot to try to test the limits of what they could and couldn't do. When I came into the league, it was kind of a good old boys league in terms of the coaches were all my age now, basically, and you just didn't do things. They would build a fence around a guy and say, this is what this guy is. He can't run this route because of this area, or he can't be a safety or a corner because that. Well, what we decided we would do is we would let every player describe and prove what he was or was not. And we just would never put limitations, and we just would never talk about what a guy couldn't do. We don't know that you can't do that. Let's go find out, and that's how it started.
Now, with all due respect to Roy Green, and you could probably draw up some plays for Roy, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. We could take care of Roy, I promise you that.
And the Cardinals, with Roy Green and Neil Lomax in the mid-'80s, the two glory years of St. Louis offense. And it's a fascinating thing about this 48-year history, almost a half-century history of football in St. Louis. You had the Cardiac Cards in the 70s with Don Coryell, and you had Mike Martz and The Greatest Show on Turf. Now, who do you think Mike Martz's biggest influence, the guy he idolized growing up in San Diego, was? Don Coryell. And we both got him in St. Louis. Tell us about that, and Don, and how you got to know him and maybe learn some stuff from him.
All health bells, yeah, if you know Don. He, growing up in San Diego in high school football, San Diego State, when they would play another Division I team, in the halftime, they would agree with the opponent on the second half to have a running clock. Because it was 49-0 or 50-0. I'd never seen that before. And then I go to these games, and the speed and how fast they went down the field, it was like basketball on grass. It was fast break football, and I was just mesmerized by it and how it. And I knew those players because I was just a little bit younger than some of them. We all played against each other in high school. I kind of knew who they were, and these guys. I mean, they're good and all that sort of thing, but they had a tight end. I know he couldn't run 4.8. and he led the nation in receiving. How did that happen? So, just intrigued with how Don was able to do that and the enthusiasm which these guys played and the energy that they had, and you just couldn't get enough of Don.
And the greatest show basically became Eric Coryell like on steroids. I mean, he took it to whole nother levels. Like I mentioned, Gil Brandt called it the greatest offense of all time. So the Rams win the Super Bowl. Mike Martz becomes the head coach. You go to the NFL owners meetings, and what was your reception there? You guys had this great dance called the Bob and Weave, and what was that like?
So I'm a head coach, and I'm excited. I'm thrilled, like the new kid in the block. And it's out in Florida. We have a meeting in a ballroom like this, about half the size of this, and all these head coaches, old grizzled head coaches and some younger ones, but I'm still pretty much the youngest guy in the room. I walk through there, and they all just kind of look. I walk in, hey, I'm all fired up. I say, hey, I'm trying to introduce myself to everybody, and nobody wanted to talk to me. They didn't want to talk to me. We just won the Super Bowl, and they were angry. They didn't like the bob and weave. They didn't like anything about what we were doing, and I was shunned in the meetings. Nobody wanted to talk to me. It was great.
And they banned the bob and weave. And guess who was the chairman of the competition committee that kind of ramrodded that through? A fellow, great coach, great person, but Dennis Green. And Mike, if I remember correctly, you opened against that Dennis Green team in the playoffs. What was the score? 49 to...
We bob and weaved the heck out of him. We beat him. We were up 49 to 14, I think, at one point, and then they came on at the end and scored some points. But the pedal was to the metal in that game.
Your players played with such confidence, and they had such fun. What my favorite play of the greatest show, remember the 2000 season opener? It's Mike Martz's debut as head coach. It's on Monday Night Football. Paul Tagliabue's in the stands, and it was a track meet. And the Rams beat the two-time defending champion Denver Broncos that night. But a quick play to Oz Hakeem. He breaks it for a 80-yard gain, and I'm sure you probably all remember the play. You could see he and Torrey Holt are running down the field. They're not taunting anybody, but they're just looking at each other, laughing. They're just having so much fun playing. Mike, how did you instill that in the players to have fun?
I get way too much credit for all that stuff. I was just a facilitator. The only thing we'll take credit for is we didn't hold them back. We took the reins off and just go like crazy. Just go. If we wanted to run a reverse, my first year there, Dick was the head coach in '99. We were backed up. We're playing the Giants. It's on the left hash on the 17-yard line. I called a reverse, backed up. And Dick said, Mike, are you sure? You want a reverse here? I said, it'll be fine, Coach. It'll be fine. And Isaac comes roaring around the corner for about 30, and it's okay. It's in you as a coach. There's things, and you're looking at the situation, it's the right time. But the situation says don't do it. And so everybody abides by those situations. So we were just different. We just weren't afraid to be different, but that's really the only impact I think we probably really had on it. These guys were just great people and great players, and we had a phenomenal staff.
Yeah, the great greeting from Dick Vermeil. You and Dick made beautiful music together. Talk
awesome.
About your relationship with Dick and what you took from each other.
I was scared to death of Dick when I first met him. I did, in the coaching circles, Dick Vermeil had this reputation of being really hard-nosed with coaches, that you came on Monday, you slept in your office, and you went home on Friday, and you had a part of Saturday with your family, and just grinding and just not happy. And I just really didn't want that, but I also was kind of interested in this job. I wanted to meet him anyway. So we were down in Mobile, and I had an interview with him at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was in that interview for 8 hours. No bathroom break. Running in place. And I was just so mesmerized by everything about his love for the game and how he approached it, what a kind and loving individual he really was. And we just saw eye to eye on so many things. I couldn't think about being any other place but right there. That's where I wanted to be.
Mike and I went for about 2 hours last night, an event at the Pierre Laclede building, but we got to wrap this up. Mike's quarterbacks, had Kurt Warner, who wasn't drafted. You had Mark Bulger, who was a 6th-round draft pick. Trent Green was an 8th-round draft pick. He wouldn't even been drafted today. There's only 7 rounds in the draft. John Kitna had 2 4,000-yard seasons with Mike Martz, and you made a winner out of Sean Hill, who was a career backup. What did you look for in quarterbacks, and what were the most important qualities in quarterbacks?
First of all, I think it's the worst coach position or misunderstood position in all sports. A lot of guys coach at that don't really have the experience, or they're on their way to something else. And I think the biggest thing with those guys is giving them the opportunity and really just kind of believing in them and the things that they have. First of all, they've got to be extremely accurate. That ball could go end over inside. It doesn't make any difference. It's just got to get where it's supposed to get on time and pinpoint accuracy. And then the personality, the competitiveness and the toughness. And then just the football intellect, that he can see something and react to it immediately and make good decisions without having to think about it. And those guys could all do that. But those things are not on all those lists of the NFL scouts when they go. There's a lot of other things, his height, his speed, his weight, things that really don't make any difference. It comes right down to it. It's what's in their heart, how competitive they are, how well they see and react, and whether they can just get the ball to where they need to get it. It's really that simple.
Mike, it's great to have you in the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, but this is only probably the second biggest thing that's going to happen here in a few days. You're about to be a grandfather, aren't you?
Going to be a granddad here in another day or so.
Mike Martz, St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you.